Hi class, welcome to week 5. We are going to be talking about just some of the issues with out of control sexual behavior, some of the problems that occur, addictive behavior, impulsive behavior, high risk behavior. How sex is considered high risk, which I'm sure all of you know this, is the fact that one, you can be putting yourself at risk with health concerns. We mentioned STIs before. I talked about AIDS last week a little bit. And so therefore, if you have multiple partners or are not using the appropriate protection and things of that nature, you are putting yourself at a health risk. And not to mention, if you're doing so and then are in a monogamous relationship, or at least that person thinks you're in a monogamous relationship, you could be putting your partner at risk, which is terrible, right? Not a good thing. And so that is also high risk, right? Because you're putting your life on the line. Not to mention, not everyone we meet impulsively is a safe person. And so sometimes people are putting themselves in danger because they are putting themselves in a very intimate space with a person who is not a safe person. So we want to make sure that like clients, we have to talk through some of the safety concerns with the behavior that they have. Not to get off tangent here, but when we talk about suicidal ideation, that doesn't always look the same. And sometimes even, you see this more in men, they may have suicidal ideation, but their way of dealing with it is maybe making very impulsive choices or having very high risk behavior with maybe the outcome being death. Is what they're hoping for. So again, something to be mindful of. I'm not saying that's the case with everyone who has high risk behavior. Maybe they just want to feel alive. Maybe they like living on the edge, whatever that may be. But it's not super healthy. And so sex is one of those things that can be used in an unhealthy way, as we know. So these are a couple just little vignettes that I thought were kind of interesting as an example of people getting caught up in behavior that's not good. This one is Linden, often viewed online sexual imagery of submissive men and BDSM, scenes at work and home. And that's when you have like the person kind of being, one person being assertive or aggressive and using aggressive behavior involving intercourse. Linden started therapy after his wife found him masturbating to these images on his smartphone next to her. When he thought she was sleeping, he told his therapist, "I think I'm addicted to porn." Alberto reported as many as 3 daily sex partners with men he met with mobile apps. He decided to see a therapist after missing an important work meeting because a hookup took too long. "It's like I can't stop myself. I hooked up even after I lost my job." So it's like, I need to do this more than anything else. And that's usually a sign of something being addictive. When you make choices that, again, put your everyday life at risk, that's a sign that something is a problem. Dwayne and Nikki entered couple therapy to address their tension-filled 6-year marriage. They were in crisis after Nikki found Dwayne's secret second cell phone and read his texts with sex workers. "He is a monster. He's really sick. He must be addicted or something." So these are examples of 3 things. And I know they're all the men getting caught. Not everyone who struggles with sexual addiction is a man. Women struggle with sexual addiction too, and or high-risk sexual behavior. And so there's a lot of reasons why people might struggle with sexual addiction. Sometimes it has to do with past history, maybe trauma. Sometimes after a traumatic situation like sexual assault, maybe molestation or sexual abuse, it could make someone hypersexual. Sometimes because sexualization happened at a much too young of age, and therefore it causes someone to be hypersexual. It could also cause someone to be hyposexual. So not just because someone was sexually abused or raped does not mean that they automatically will be that way, but that sometimes does happen. And so a lot of sexual deregulation comes from, life experience, not having positive coping skills, not necessarily knowing how to self-soothe. And as a result, people find ways to deal with these feelings, and not always is that done in a healthy way. The SA model applies to the pathological mechanism of substance addiction. So SA is a group that people can go to deal with their sexual addiction. It's usually very confidential. In my group class, I had a couple people one time, they weren't necessarily honest, and they joined the SA group just so they could observe the group. Not the way I would have suggested to do it, but they got to join the group. Very private, probably usually a closed group, not necessarily always open to new people. The SA theorists often apply substance addiction criteria from the DSM. SA literature etiology centered about the ability to produce opiate-like chemicals in the brain during sexual activity as literal evidence of the addictive qualities of sex. Sex is very addictive. It makes you feel good. There's this really good documentary. It's like a docuseries, I should say. It's called Painkillers. It's on Netflix, but it's about the opioid epidemic of Oxycontin, which is wild. It's like wild how that all happened. But the whole idea of what made Oxy so appealing was the pain pleasure principle of I feel pain, I want to feel pleasure. Of course I want to feel pleasure over pain. And so when we're avoiding pain, we might seek pleasure, which sex is a way to seek pleasure, right? Maybe numbing is a way to seek pleasure. So someone might use a substance. Maybe spending money is a way to seek pleasure. Maybe food is. There's a lot of different ways we can seek pleasure that aren't necessarily beneficial to us. High-risk sexual behavior could be a way to seek pleasure. And sex is one of those things, once you've achieved some level of orgasm or whatever that might be, it's like you're always kind of chasing it, which is what oftentimes addicts do, or they're chasing that feeling. And sex is one of those things that people chase. And endorphins are involved. A lot of things happen. Oxytocin's released. So, a climax. So there's a lot of things that happen physiologically that kind of give that release, that high feeling. That's why masturbation is can be such a problem, because of the release it gives. And a person could, in a sense, do it anytime they want, which is where you get addictive behavior with masturbation, things of that nature. And so it's just making sure that clients, I think the first step is addressing you have a problem. Anytime it's causing a problem in an intimate relationship, maybe a parent-child relationship, maybe it's like, I can't go to school because I want to masturbate all day, or I lost my job as a result of high-risk sexual behavior with people that I don't even know, and I was late to the job because I was in a bathroom at a park, whatever the situation is. That's a problem. That's a sign. Okay. And so people often are like, is that a problem? Is that a thing? Yeah, that's a thing. I can't go to sleep unless I watch pornography. That's a problem. Things of that nature. So it's something just to be very mindful of as clinicians, because you're probably going to come across this. Unfortunately, even with young people, right? The access to the internet, what they can see. This one of those things had to do with BDSM, but porn usually starts off pretty harmless and then it gets pretty progressive. And I'm not saying that just as a Christian who doesn't necessarily at all agree with pornography. Pornography is damaging regardless if you know Jesus or not. Those images stick in your brain. How it affects actual real sex is a problem. And it can be very habit forming. Not to mention, like, the porn industry isn't necessarily really great, when it comes to sex trafficking, things of that nature. Even now with AI, it's wild what AI can do. It's very disturbing, right? Like, we could go down that rabbit hole and probably be very disturbed. But again, like, you get desensitized to what you see, and that's where it's like, I have to think. I have to keep going. I have to keep looking because I need to find that feeling again. I need to find what I'm looking for. And that's where people get really caught up and can end up in situations that they never thought, like, I never thought I'd get to this point where I'm watching this kind of pornography. And that's really problematic, right? And damaging. And can make a person feel really terrible about themselves. So just things to be mindful of in regards to sexual behaviors and patterns. Sometimes like with coping skills, like people don't have proper coping skills, and so they're looking for a stress reliever. They're looking for some sort of outlet, and so what they turn to, it works, but it's not good. And so we want to be able to replace negative coping skills with positive coping skills. Now, you could have someone come in and it doesn't create a problem for them at all, whatever their behavior is. And that's their choice. You can't tell someone, oh, this is a problem, because that's their decision to determine if something is a problem. That's not yours. But it is something, though, that to be mindful of, that these are issues and concerns. Now, it may not be a problem for the individual, but it could be a problem for their partner, which in a sense is a problem. You know, if the wife has a problem with the husband looking at something, or if the husband has a problem with the wife looking at something, then it's a problem, because you can't be a happy married couple, whatever happy is. You can't be a happy married couple with one person not happy. It doesn't work well that way. So just things to think about as you're, working through some of these things. And knowing, these are real issues that you are going to come across, and how you choose to handle them and deal with them is going to be really important. And knowing great referrals. SA is a way to refer. A lot of people in the Christian communities use Celebrate Recovery, things of that nature to help people. So just something to be mindful of. There are options out there. Sometimes it has to do with a chemical issue as far as like compulsive behavior or OCD behavior. And so just knowing maybe even to refer to a medical professional. A lot of guilt and shame are tied to obsessive or not healthy coping skills. And so working through some of that so that people can experience freedom from their decisions is always beneficial. So just some thoughts. So those are some thoughts on that. Going back to, some things that people experience: sexual harassment, rape, sexual abuse, things of that nature. We will have situations like this arise in our office. We are expected to report if someone is a minor, and or if a person is not a minor, but they had an experience and they would like to report as an adult, they can. So we report sexual abuse, we report physical abuse, emotional abuse, all those kinds of things. You could even, there could be an aging adult who is being abused sexually, and or a dependent adult, which then will require us to report. So how sexual abuse can, like I mentioned, there's two different ways potentially a person can respond. It can be very traumatic. And so you could have people, like if we go back to maybe the first week when we were talking about female sexual dysfunction, there might be a reason why someone has dysfunction, and it could be because of a sexual experience that wasn't warranted or asked, like the person wasn't consensual, which might cause some issues with intercourse with a loving partner. Not abnormal, very normal. The body protects, the body has trauma, the body responds, our bodies keep the score, So you have to be willing to talk with your clients through that. Maybe it's something they've never discussed before. Maybe it's something they hadn't even connected, gives them an issue. But, if they're responding physically like that, probably it does give them an issue. So things to be mindful of and to talk to your clients about, okay? Sexual harassment, like how they should handle it in the workplace, what they should do if they're feeling uncomfortable, someone's making them comfortable, how to set up boundaries, how to make them feel safe in situations where they're like, if this person corners me, I don't know what I'm going to do. Those aren't ways you should feel in a work environment or in a personal situation. So being able to make boundaries and things like that is really, really important. Also with sexual assault, maybe somebody doesn't want to report to the police, that we don't have to report it to the police per se, but maybe it's something that they would help us do with them, like maybe make a phone call. Also, a great resource out there is the Rape Crisis Center, and there's one in Riverside. Great resource, offers clinical help. They offer groups. They offer self-defense groups. Just a way for victims to band together and speak about their experience and process it, and hopefully get to a place where they can move on. But there's some commonality, which I think, again, groups are very validating. and that's a free resource in the community. There is even rape advocates that will go out and go to a medical examination with the client, go to court with the client, all those kinds of things. So it helps someone to feel like they are not alone. Just something to be mindful of as far as an option for sexual assault or sexual abuse. Okay. So I appreciate talking with you all about these things. I hope this wasn't too much. I understand this could touch a sensitive spot for some of you based on your own life experiences. And there's no judgment here. It's just understanding that these are things that we could come across. I've just been done reading your discussion boards for this past week 3, and I just want you to be mindful of when we respond to other people that these are our classmates, could be our future colleagues. So just be mindful of how you talk to one another, because you are people. These are sometimes personal subjects. So making sure we're not taking anything personal, but that we're doing our due diligence to respond as we should. So I wish you all the best. Have a great week.